So if you are joining this session, depends upon how you are joining, whether you are on Zoom or watching me live somewhere. I'm Aftab Siddiqui. I work for Internet Society. I've been working for them for 5+ years now. Mostly my background is from the ISP industry, network operators. Did most of my professional career in the ISPs. And now I'm here working on the routing security side of things. So let's start with, this is the third day of the Routing Security Summit. You must have heard about MANRS quite a lot in those days. So I'm not going to give you a 101 on what MANRS is and what we do in MANRS. But I can just tell you that I'm part of the MANRS initiative, and I'll give you some details about a product of MANRS project, which is called MANRS Observatory. So let's start. As we do this many times, I will ask someone to tell me if I am sharing the right screen, because it happens all the time. So right now I'm not sharing anything, so don't worry. So let me start sharing. So you are in the webinar. I will stop sharing this. All right, so let's go. So why we did what we did, which is the MANRS Observatory, right? So MANRS, as you know and must have heard, that the initiative was started back in 2015. It was through a roundtable of network operators which were very interested in the routing security aspect of the whole internet ecosystem. And they came up with this initiative supported by Internet Society. Fast forward to 2018-19, where ISOC made it a priority and a project where we decided, okay, fine, we need to understand how the whole ecosystem is behaving from the routing security perspective. And that's why the MANRS Observatory was formed. The initial idea was to test the conformity of the MANRS actions, how network operators are adhering to these actions. So the most important thing, make sure the reputation is intact, because if you are saying that I'm part of the MANRS initiative and doing all the bad things, then it doesn't look good on any of us. So that was these are some of the motivations. That's why it was started, and it became more than just a conformance checking tool. I'll explain what it is right now and what we would like it to be. So that's how it is all started. That was the beginning. That the people can see how routing security is on the global internet, and then the participant who joins MANRS can also see their own network. So that was the whole idea. Just a quick overview. What we preach, we say you do filtering, you implement anti-spoofing, make sure your contact details are up to date, and you provide routing information for the global validation. These are the 4 basic things, irrespective of what program you're looking at, whether it is for network operators, whether it's for IXPs, CDNs, and cloud providers, and ultimately for the vendors. Of course, the vendor is slightly different, but the other programs, the basic concept remains the same. This is an overview for the IXPs as well. So there are slight changes, as you can see, but the basic of filtering and making sure the contact information is up to date remains the same. So the measurement framework, let's come to the observatory, what it is. It is passive, right? We are not actively collecting data. When I say not actively, we don't have BGP pairs all across the globe where we collect all the information in real time and then provide that information. No, we don't do that. Because as I mentioned, the motivation was slightly different when we started. We might be able to do it in the future, but we are not doing it right now. So it is passive collection. We collect data from multiple data sources, which are publicly available. Those data sources are at some level doing active measurement. But what we do is we collect data at the end of the day. So you will see a 24-hour cycle in all the data we collect. So it's not active, it is passive, but it's not weeks or many days behind. It is a few hours or 24 hours to some extent behind the data cycle. So it's not that behind the curve. It is still there. It is based on third-party open data sources and some of our own data sources now, which I will explain what data sources we have added, which we have created as part of the MANRS research team. So there are many matrices, right? So we have to measure how a network is performing or behaving on the internet. So we look at how, so we number them into M1, M2, M1, M2C, M3, M4, M5. I'll explain a little bit and as we go along. We need to check if a route, if an AS or the network has leaked anything from their network. If the AS has misoriginated anything from their network, misorigination or hijack, what you call it in normal terms. If a route leak has been done by their direct customer or route misorigination by a direct customer. So these are the classification. Bogon prefixes by a network. Bogon prefixes propagated by the network. It means it was coming from their downstream customer, then they accepted it and allowed it to go forward. Then we move into the Bogon ASN, which is called M4. Then Bogon ASN propagated by the network. So they are all in sync in that manner. But of course, every metric has its own number and its own weightage when we calculate the conformance. Then we also added later in the year M9. I mean, you can see the number is 9, which was later added, last year added, which is the route origin validation. We also are measuring on the basis that whether network is doing route origin validation. IP spoofing on the basis of QAIDA spoof for data. We also measure that. M8 is the contact information. And the last four are the IRR data set based or the RPKI data set, information on the IRR or RPKI data set. So these are all the matrices we calculate. And if you are a MANRS participant, you can log into the MANRS Observatory and see all these matrices and your score and all the details around these matrix for your network. Of course, as we mentioned, when you are collecting data from multiple sources, there are always caveats attached to it. So our data is not. We cannot claim, and we don't claim that it is 101% accurate. No, there are false positives. There are loopholes in that data set, and we are trying to improve them on daily basis. I would say we try to improve as much as possible. We have done a lot of improvement. We have presented that at multiple times. But of course, there's still a lot of improvements required, which we are working on. For example, the filtering data comes from 2 distinct sources. One is GRIP, which is a Georgia Tech Institute initiative, initially started by the QAIDA Institute, then moved to the Georgia Tech, headed by Dr. Alberto Denotti. It's an excellent resource. It's publicly available. You can go and look it up on your own. We only collect the route misorigination data from there. Then another product we collect data from is called Cisco Crossworks. It used to be called BGP Stream. which was then later bought by Cisco, and then it became part of their product line called Cisco Crossworks. You can still go to bgpstream.com and see all those incidents available. Again, for the Bogon data set, we get all the data from the CIDR report, which is everyone should be aware of that, at least in the Asia Pacific region. It's very well known. It's been operated by Jeff Houston, Philip Smith. Yes, there are some issues in that we have highlighted in the past. It has limited vantage points. There are some false positive in it because of the time cycle. So yes, there are issues, but of course, it is that is the only source available for extensive Bogon data at the moment. For route origin validation, APNIC has created a product, a service called APNIC iROV, where they calculate the data of route origin validation by sending a valid and then invalid route and see who is picking up that data. So there are limitations in that sense that if you are connected, if you are a stub network and you are connected to an ISP which is doing route origin validation, this process will consider you as being you has also implemented route origin validation, even though you haven't. So yes, there are limitations, but again, that is the best available method at the moment. There are other methods. You will hear about them in the research section, which will be which Amrish is one of my colleague. Amrish is moderating. Please join that. So that's a very interesting concept of measuring route origin validation. For the anti-spoofing, right now, that's the only product we have, which is called the KAIDA Spoofer project. It's been there for many years. It's been tested by many people. So that's the only thing we have available. For the coordination, we look at the RIR whois data and also the peering DB data. It is as good as how people have updated it. So if you haven't updated it, of course, it will not be accurate. Non-responsive contacts, we can't detect it because every RIR has a process, I believe, to check the non-responsive or inactive contacts. We do follow that, but still there are, if a contact is inactive, then it is inactive. RPKI, I would say, is the best method at the moment of the accuracy of the data. So we do rely on that one. So yeah, so these are all the sources from where we collect the data. So data. This is the structure, a very nice diagram. How we collect the data from every source, and then we do our magic a little bit, and then present in a meaningful manner. And on the basis of these data set, we also send conformance reports to all our MANRS participants. We started doing this last year, and it's a huge success story in that sense, because it has helped operators to see their conformance every month. And then if they do not believe that they have done something wrong, they can come back and verify the information and mark those incidents as false positive, and there is a team behind that process where they review it if it actually was an incident or not. And we were able to clean up a lot of data because of these conformance reports. So if you join MANRS as a participant, you will get those reports for free as well. So there are matrices and their thresholds, how we are calculating it. If you go to the MANRS Observatory, you will find multiple circles in the middle layer. And this is how we measure them, and this is how we present them. That how for us, this is the conformance report for us. This is how we measure how a network is conformant or not. It is based on simple mathematical formula. Please have a look. If you have any question, I would love to explain that to you. Now, going back to the MANRS Observatory. When you log into observatory.manrs.org, and we will go through this in live. So when you log in, you will, when you open the MANRS Observatory, you will see a public view where you do not require any login details. So that is available to everyone. It gives you global data. It will give you regional, sub-regional data. For example, you can look at the Asia Pacific data. You can look at the data on the basis of RIR, whether it is APNIC or RIPE-NCC or AFRINIC. So you can look at the data on the RIR basis, a regional basis, the United Nations regions and sub-region basis, or on the basis of a country. So that is available to everyone. But if you have access, if you have the login credentials, and who will get the login credentials, we'll talk about it later. If you have access to the private side of the observatory, you can get a lot more information. For example, the MANRS participant get access to the observatory and they can see all the ASNs or the networks under their administration. So they can see a lot more details than what you can see from the public view. So you can see specific incidents. You can see all the bogon announcement and everything, and how we are measuring those incidents as well, which I will show it to you, so don't worry. So let's look at the public view, which you will see right now if you go to the MANRS observatory.manrs.org. So when you open the web, this is what you will find, right? So the first one is, of course, you can go back in time. If you can see there is a calendar view, and it is based on, it's updated on daily basis. I made sure that I went back to the June 1 because if you go right now, you might see some dates for the July, but let's stick to the month to month. So at the end of the month, you will see the whole month report, and this calendar icon will become blue. It means the whole month has been calculated. If it is not, then it will be yellow or orange in color. So it will show you that the whole month calculation hasn't been done yet. So for example, at the end of June 2023, this was the status of the global routing table. There were 617 route misorigination, 40 route leaks, bogon announcement 822. Of course, that is massive in terms of bogon announcement, but yes, this is the global view. Some of the incidents are very short-lived, so we do measure that because something did happen. Even though it was for 10 seconds or 5 seconds, your filters were not in place. That's why it happened. So that is important to register. So we have also started measuring route origin validation, as I mentioned quite recently, from the APNIC IROV dataset. You can see on the right corner, there is a toggle button where we say we use grip data. If you deselect that, it will only use data from BGP stream. We are in the making of removing this toggle so that it will always be both data set together. But you do have the opportunity to remove one data set and add the other one. For the RPKI, we moved from the global, we used to measure it from the RIPE-NCC stats. We have now moved it to ROAST, which is our own data collection process, which I will show you in a moment. So this is what you will see. If you go to the main page, this is what you will see. As I said, you can go back in time from the beginning when we started collecting data, and you can see the difference. You can go to the history section and see the whole year, the last 12 months rather than a year. So from June 2022 to June 2023, you can see the progress, how many incidents in every month. So you can see that as well. And this is the readiness score. This is the conformance for the networks. This is the threshold formula I showed to you before. This is where it is implemented. So you might see, well, 99% of the networks are conformant. Well, yes, because they haven't created any incident. That is the other way around. They are conformant just because they haven't created an incident. For example, how many networks we have measured as culprits? It's 955. So out of 75,000, it's a very small number. So yes, 99% networks are conformant, or they are doing the right thing, or they haven't created any incident. We don't have a lot of data from the spoofer project. Not many people do the testing. So if you are part of, irrespective of where you work, download the spoofer client and just run it in your network, irrespective of where you are, whether at home or at office. More data is always good data. So this is the conformance report for global networks. Below that, you can see a map. Every economy or country, you call it, is represented here. All these small dots, you can click on any of the dot and you will find all the details. For example, I clicked on Australia. There are 1673 networks in the routing table from Australia. 8 networks which have done something wrong. There were 10 incidents in the month. 99% is still networks are doing the right thing. For example, 8 networks out of 1673 network is still a very small number, but 1 is a big number in any way, because one network can bring down the whole internet for everyone, as we have seen it multiple times. From there, you can also select, this is still a public view, you can also select the country and see how your country, or whichever country you want to look at, whichever economy you want to look at, is performing and has been performing since 2019, from the time we have started collecting data. You can see how many networks are doing route origin validation, what is the status of RPKI or ROA uptake in the country, and things like that. This information is publicly available. As I mentioned, you can also go back into the history, how things are moving. There's a very steady graph of ROA uptake. It hasn't moved much in the last 12 months. Whoever wanted to create ROA, they have already created ROAs. There were small bumps in the middle. Someone tried something, but then they moved it. So So you can see a lot of quite interesting thing from these graphs. From the route origin validation part, you can see there's a very small number of networks are doing route origin validation within the country. So that is, and you can also go back in time up from 2022, 2020, 2021, and so on and so forth. Now we move into the private view of the observatory, right? So who gets the private view? So there are 3 access types. One is aspirant account or aspirant account. You can pronounce it the way you want it. If you're aspiring to become a MANRS participant, that's the whole point. So you will get a temporary access. You have to apply for it, but you will get the temporary access to your network details, right? So you can log in, you will get an access, and we will allow your ASN or your ASNs into your access, and you can see how your network is performing. That is a temporary access. We expect you to become MANRS participant. That's why you get this temporary access, because then you can see how your network is performing, and then you can improve it and then become a permanent participant. Then the participant account, that's a permanent access to your network, unless we kick you out for doing something wrong. We haven't done anything so far like that. So that's a permanent access. You will get that access for your network again, not for anybody else. So if you are managing multiple ASNs, you will get access to multiple ASNs. And then if you're a permanent account or you are a participant and account holder, then you can have multiple accounts. For example, you have 3, 4, 5 members in your team. They can all have their own personal account, but they can only access those particular ASNs. Then there's a special kind of access. It is called partner access. That access is also temporary, but is only available to MANRS partners who are working with us, providing data, and most importantly, the researchers. MANRS ambassadors and the mentors also get the access, but this is all temporary basis. It has a start and an end date, and has some strict terms of use. So because it's the data for everyone, it's a global data. You can see any network and how they are performing with details. So it has to have some terms and conditions. So if your organization would like to partner with MANRS, you are more than welcome, and you can get that access as well. If you are a researcher and interested in some research ideas, please do reach out to my colleague Amrish or Max. They will really like to hear from you about your ideas. Or you can reach out to the MANRS mentors or ambassadors from the research side. There are some really good people doing an amazing research work on this. So now I have logged in to a private side of the MANRS Observatory, right? So this is my login. Internet Society has its own AS for the research purpose, 141384, and we have a aspirant account for that purpose. We are aspiring to become a MANRS participant. It's a research network, so it's very clean. We don't run any production services on that one. So of course, it's been clean from the beginning. We have done all the right things. So you can see when I log into my account, I don't see any incident. If I create an incident, I will see it here. And if I create an incident at the end of the month, I will get a report, conformance report as well, suggesting that I have done something wrong, or the data suggests that I have done something wrong, and I can go back and fix it. Saying that, well, no, it wasn't an accident, it was an actual announcement. Because of this reason, I can provide the feedback, and the reviewers can look at it and then purge that incident for me. So it will not be counted as an incident in my account. So far, it all looks good, nothing red or yellow. So this is perfect for me for the network. I can also go back to the details section. Previously, in a public view, that was not possible, right? So when I go to the details section, what I see is only my network, of course, which is the ASN I'm responsible for. So which is 141384. Then now I have the opportunity to click and get more details. And when I log in, I get a lot of details. It is good that I'm not seeing a lot of details because I'm not doing something wrong. If I have done something wrong, I will see a lot of details here. So what you can do with this information, I will explain step by step. So you can see at the top, you can download this data. The data you will download, it will be in a JSON format. And you can see all these matrices and their number in a very easy to read and understand format. So you don't have to read everything. You just create a JSON parser, which we will see in a moment. And then you can see if your score is going up or down in any of the matrices. So here we go. In the RPKI, of course, we are not creating any incident, but of course, are we doing the right thing in terms of creating our ROAs, generating route objects, and things like that. So they will be available here as well. So you can see the RPKI, it is the source of the data is roast. We do have 3 ROAs. Of course, because we have a /23, we have divided into 2 /24. One is advertised from Sydney, another one advertised from Zurich. And then we have one /48 V6. which is used at one location only. So there are 3 ROAs available, and so on and so forth. Do we have any invalid? Well, let's see. So these are the things you can see, log in and get the details for your network. If you have a big network, of course, it will be filled with a lot of information. So when I say you can download the data, you can just click it and a file will be downloaded. And when you open the file, it will be in this format, which is a JSON format. And it will give you all the details, your ASN, all the matrices and their values. Of course, they're all nil because I have this network has done nothing wrong. But for example, if you want to look at the data for the RPKI, it will also tell you that the M7 RPKI raw data, total prefix is 3, unknown prefix is number 0. So saying that not a single route which this AS is advertising has an unknown ROA. So every advertised route has a valid ROA attached to this ASN, so which is perfect. So you can go to ROA stats .manrs.org, roa-stats.manrs.org, and look up the ASN report for this ASN as well. So you can see there are 3 ROAs. All 3 are valid. The country it is showing Singapore because we got the resources from APNIC, and we have a registered office in Singapore. ISOC has a registered office in Singapore. That's why we got the services resources in APNIC, and that's why it is showing Singapore. Now, that's all good. You can see everything from the web UI, but everything has to be on an API. That was our next target when we started doing the when we created the MANRS Observatory. But of course, that still requires a lot of consideration, what data you can expose through an API, what information you can expose, how people will use it, how people will abuse it, and things like that. But anyway, we earlier, late last year, we started the API access, and now it is publicly available. Anybody can access it, anybody can use it. So why API? As I said, when the MANRS Observatory was created, we always had the view that the data should be publicly available. Some level of data should always be publicly available. And as you can see there, when you log in, you will see a lot of information. Yes, you don't see granular ASN information, but you do see information about the global incident and all these information about countries or economies or region or sub-regions. So you can look at that information without requiring any login or anything. But it was all available through web. So what we have done now is we have exposed a lot of that data through API. In the similar manner, it is available through web. For example, it has a public access. Well, at least the API public access is still behind a registration. So I'll explain all this registration model. But of course, as I said, to avoid anyone abusing it, it is so that we are very much sure that who is accessing it. It's not, we don't want to restrict anyone, so there is no restriction, but just make sure that no one abuses it. So you don't want to make it an open API just behind a registration, which is simple without collecting any PI information. Of course, name is there and the email is there, but nothing else we collect, just to make sure that that an identification is attached to an API call. That's it. So this will enable everyone to view and use data for research or make sense of the state of routing on the internet for their own use, whatever they want to do with it. For example, the country reports you can get if you would like to make sure that the country you're residing in or you're working in progress in the routing security arena. You do like to see how what is the ROA uptake of the country, what are the networks running in that country. So things like that you can get it from the public access. So who can access the API? If you are a MANRS participant, you will get an access by default. So if you are a user, if you have a active user on the MANRS Observatory, you can enable the API key and start using the API without any problem. As I mentioned before, you can become a MANRS partner, but of course there are some restrictions who can become MANRS partner. Either you are an organizations providing the data set to us already, another nonprofit organization working in the same has the same motives to achieve routing security, or part of the Internet Society org membership as well. So there are ways you can become the partner and get the access and a global access, but of course it has to go through a certain scrutiny and has a start and an end date. The best way is to get the API access to become a MANRS participant. Then you can get a lot of details about your network. You can also, as I mentioned, you can also just register an API user. That is a public view, right? So you will only see the public data set. It's a little bit more than what you can see from the web, because you can't see the list of ROAs on a web, because populating that list is a bit hard. And it's a bit clunky. You can find that information on Roast, but of course it goes through a different portal. So you can get that information from the API, public API. You can register. It's an easy process. You just put your email address, name, and you get the notification from the observatory. You can log into your observatory account and then just create a API key. So how do you do that? Simple as that. Once you get the login, you log into your MANRS Observatory account. On the right corner, you will see a profile button. Just go to the profile and just create and generate an API key. Here, because I have already generated the API key, of course, it's hidden once it is generated. You have to store it. If I somehow lose it, or if I have not created it, I can regenerate another API key. So that is possible. This is for the API users only. If you are a MANRS participant, of course, you will get some email subscriptions as well. Plus, you don't have to go through this registration process. You can just generate your API key and start using it. So since this is a session for all, so we will stick to the API, which you can use as a public user or an API user. You can get a lot of information, which I have showed you. You can get from the web as well. For example, I said, for example, you can download this information when you log in to the MANRS participant account, right? So when you are a MANRS participant and you have an API key, you can get a lot of more information as compared to what you can get from just a public API key user, right? So from a public API, this is what you get. You can get a list of ROAs by ASN, list of ROAs by country, list of ASNs and their information, the whole 75,000 networks in the global routing table. You'll get the information about all of them. What is their ASN, what is their name in the RIR whose databases, and whether they are MANRS participant or not. You get that information from this public API. You'll get the MANRS IXP information, all the 117 IXPs who are part of MANRS. You can get all the information. MANRS NetOps conformances, you can see which network is conformant and at what degree, because that information is also publicly available. MANRS IXP conformance, how these IXPs, the 117 IXPs are performing. The CDN and cloud provider conformance and vendor conformance. So these are all the 5 programs we have. So you can look up how every network in these programs are conforming to the MANRS actions. So one thing is very important. And I was talking to one of my colleague, Max, and we were thinking that we should do a separate tutorial on JQ, because if you want to play with JSON data, you need to learn JQ. I mean, I had to do it myself because that was the only way. There is no, if you just get the JSON data, it is very clunky, not in the best presentable way. We call it, it's not pretty at all. What JQ does, it's a simple command line tool. It's a JSON processor. If you have used any Unix operating system, whether it is Linux or Mac OS, then you must have used awk, AWK, or SED. Because life is incomplete without these two tools, or maybe grep or less and more, all these things which you use on daily basis. Similarly, JQ is, for example, is part of the same family, awk or SED. You need that to parse the data, or especially the JSON data. You can do a lot more with JQ. It's a very strong tool. You can use it for a lot of purposes. But let's say we are just using it for this exercise because MANRS API, Observatory API, only gives you get function. So you can only get the information. At this stage, we are not updating any information in the MANRS Observatory. So it doesn't require any information to feed into the observatory. So the get function, for the get function, just assume that we are only using it to make your data look pretty. So the pretty print. So let's start with some examples. From now on, what I will do, I will move into my terminal, so we can see a lot of information from there. I did mention one thing, that the MANRS API documentation is available publicly. You can go to manrs.stoplight.io and you will see all these public API endpoints and their examples and how to use it, right? So I will stop the share of my presentation and I will start sharing few things with all of you first. All right. Right. So this one. So as I mentioned, if you go to the MANRS public API, this is the main page, manrsstoplight.io. You can see, you can go here and read all the documents. This will give you the MANRS public API information. So there are multiple ways you can test this information into the production or in the dev environment. You also have, since it is just a get function, you can test it in production environment. It doesn't make any difference. But our dev environment is also up to date, and we also add a new functionality into that quite aggressively. So you can test that. Otherwise, you can do on the mock server. I would recommend go ahead with the production server if you want to test any of these things. So, for example, list ROAS by ASN. You can get this information. And here is the example how you can do it. So one thing which I have mentioned here, don't worry about the API keys. I will regenerate all of them. So if you want to copy them right now, you can do it. So that's not a problem. So how do you get the API key? So this is what I wanted to show. For example, you log into observatory.manrs.org. So this is the page you will see. When you log in, you can apply for the API key user account, and you will get an email. And in the email, you will get a link where you can set your password. So once you set your password, your ID, your email ID will become your user ID, or otherwise you have set your user ID to something different. You can come here and then log into your account. So I have just logged into my ISOC APAC account, which is AS141384. So when I come here and I come to the profile, I can see I have already generated my API key. So I will use that API key for that purpose. So whatever the API key I have, I can simply use that, copy it, and then paste it. So that is one thing. So the second thing I just wanted to show is the ROA stats tool. Right. So this is the tool which is called roa-stats.manrs.org. This also gives you a global view of the RPKI ROA uptake. And this is where I was looking at my ASN information, 141384. I can look it up and get all the information of the ASN, and it will show you what information is there. And this is the same information I can fetch from the API. So I will stop this again, and now this time I will share my terminal. So this is my terminal. So for example, first thing I want to see is the number of ROAs for my ASN. So simple, if you go to the API document, you will see a example for that. And I'm just going to use that example. The only thing you have to put in is your bearer, your API key right next to the bearer. That's it. Nothing else you have to add. Of course, you have to add your own ASN to get that information, and then simply just click enter. So remember, I told you the information JSON will give you is not very pretty, right? So you need to add JQ. What is? Oh, wrong keyboard, sorry. So it will now show me all the V4 country name Singapore, code SG, prefix. My prefix 141384 has two prefixes. 103.162.143.0/24 is valid. 142.0/24 is also valid, and the only V6 we have is also valid. When it was calculated, it was fetched today, 18th of July, 2023. AS details and the name of the AS. I can also put multiple filters with my JQ, because this is not a JQ tutorial, but I'll give you an example. For example, I can just do that. Give me the V4 data for all the ROAs. So need to close the quote, and that's it. So you will get the data for V4. Okay, I don't want to see the country information. I know which country this is in, so I can make it simple to just ROA. So now I will only see the ROA information. So now how you can see how strong this tool is, and the API will give you everything. Now you just have to do is put your own ASN here, and you will get the information for that ASN. For example, if I put the information for a bigger ASN, for example, someone an organization I worked for in the past, because they have like hundreds of ROAs, and they have hundreds of networks. Of course, you will see many objects. So you can do whatever you want. You can put search function in this. You can put select function in this. So that is up to you what you want to do with this. So similarly, if I want to get the data for a country, the ROAS for the whole country, I can get that information from here as well. So I'm picking a smaller country, which is Bhutan, because otherwise it will take a long time to get the information. So let's see Bhutan and put a JQ and then more. So, so that is pretty. So here you go. You get all the information, all the states, what are valid, what are not valid. And if I just want to see, as I mentioned, if I just want to see the ROA for V4, I can do something similar for the country, which is something like this, right? Now I'm only getting the ASN and their ROAs, not the other information which you are getting. Now, as I mentioned, you can get the ASN information of the whole routing table, which is a lot, right? So if I run this one as it is, it will take a good long time to publish this list. You can see how many seconds already gone and how many left. So it will take a long time, but you can see how much data it has downloaded, and it will give you all the ASN in the global routing table. So, but if you need it for some reason, that's fine. If you don't need it, for example, I just want to see how many networks are part of the MANRS initiative, and they are in the global routing table. So I have just used a couple of JQ functions. For example, I said select all the networks, their name and AS number, where the MANRS value is true. For example, here the MANRS value is false. I just want to see all those networks where MANRS value is true. So it will take some time, but it will start giving you in a nice 2-column, because this is paste minus will put all the value in 2 columns and give you a list of all the networks which are part of the MANRS initiative. So see, it starts building up. So you can say the Cornell AS226, Boston University AS111, and so on and so forth. You can see the list of all the networks here. So let me pause it here. Now, moving into the MANRS participant. So if you want to see the information of all the IXP participants, so in this way, the example I just gave you before, you can get the MANRS participant who are network operators. This one, you can get the list of MANRS participants who are IXPs. So Calgary Internet Exchange, JPIX, BBIX, Great Plain Connect, DKIX, Lepezeg, DKIX Phoenix. So these are all 116 IXPs who are part of the MANRS initiative. Now, for example, I want to see how network operators who are part of the MANRS initiative doing in terms of their MANRS conformance. I can do that as well. I can simply use this query. Again, all these queries are available in the API documentation. You can have a look and see how to use it. The only thing you have to do is right after bearer, you have to put the API key, and that's it, nothing else. So in this example, you can see all the participant, their information. For example, this one is V7 Provider Internet Services. It's from Brazil. AS number is this, member since 2022. And are they conformant or not? You will see all the list. So if you are a MANRS participant, you can get this information publicly by a public API key. So, for example, I'm just showing you the API I'm using. It's a get query. I just passing on a URL, which is again available in on the API documents. Header authorization and the bearer, that's available again in the documentation. The only thing I have added here is my API key. So once I add that information, I can get anything I like from here. So just in the interest of time, the last thing I would like to show you that you can also get, for example, you can get the information for network operators, MANRS network operators, their conformity, IXPs, CDN, and vendors. And you can see how they are performing. You can also see who are the networks who are part of MANRS initiative or not. You can see ROAS for any ASM. You can see ROAS for your country or any other country, and you can filter down ASN on the basis of country, because it is not necessary that one AS is in one country. For example, an AS, how that AS is performing in that country, and you can have a look at that. So you can put filters on the basis of what you want to see, but this is all publicly available. You just have to register for the API key, and you will get that information. And now I'm getting a message that my time is over. So I'll quickly jump back to my presentation where it only says, if I can't find it, the Zoom, I lost my Zoom. Stop sharing. Here you go. So yeah, this is the only thing I was just trying to say is that thank you so much for listening. I hope I was able to provide some information. This is at the moment it is we have just started. I mean, it's not just started. It started a couple of months ago. So if you want to see more data set, if you want to see more information from public view, please let us know. Reach out to us at, and this is what I wanted to show, I forgot. Share screen. Yeah, let me just share it. So this is, I just want to say that if you have any feedback, please reach out to us through this contact form, contact@manrs.org. You will get all the information. We will provide you all the information you need. If you have any requests to put into API data set, please let us know. If something is not wrong, if something is broken, please just let us know. We are still experimenting a lot of things. Sometimes things do break. So please reach out to us. On that note, I would say thank you so much. Robbie, over to you. You want to say something?
Recording stopped.